If you're having a good time listening to Bradbury 100, please check out my other podcast, Science Fiction 101. And don't forget to visit my website at bradburymedia.co.uk. This is Bradbury 100, celebrating the life and works of American writer Ray Bradbury. Welcome once again to Bradbury 100, where today we're going to look at a pair of classic radio drama series which made extensive use of Ray Bradbury's stories. You may recall a few episodes ago we looked at Ray's career with the series Suspense, which included some stories which hadn't even been published before they were dramatised for radio. These were in the earliest years of Ray's career and helped to establish his reputation among a growing audience of listeners and readers. The shows I'm talking about today came a few years later as Ray was breaking into book publishing, with the books undoubtedly helping to promote these shows, and these shows helping to promote his books. The series in question are two science fiction classics. Before The Twilight Zone, before The Outer Limits, in fact, before television had really taken over the media landscape, there was the science fiction radio anthology drama series Dimension X. And a few years later, really in American radio drama's dying days, an almost identical series called X-1.
Adventures in time and space, told in future tense. Dimension X.
Countdown for blast off. X-5, 4, 3, 2, X-1, fire.
Dimension X ran on NBC Radio from Saturday, April the 8th, 1950 at 8 p.m, with shows performed live from Radio City in New York. Each episode was 30 minutes long, with stories taken from recent magazines and books. And remember, this was a time when radio was still leading the way for home entertainment, although during this decade, the 1950s, more and more households bought TV sets, and radio listening went into serious decline. Saturday night at 8 sounds like it might be prime time. Well, it was, but I gather that Saturday evenings generally had the second lowest listening figures of any week. Friday had the worst. The reason? Well, who stays in to listen to the radio on a Friday night or a Saturday night? Dimension X was typically scheduled between the sports-themed Joe DiMaggio show and the game show Truth or Consequences, which doesn't sound a bad lineup to me. Dimension X was broadcast live for its first 13 weeks, and thereafter it was pre-recorded. It was one of the first shows to use tape, in fact. The very first episode of Dimension X was a dramatisation of a story by Graham Dorr called The Outer Limit. Nothing at all to do with the Outer Limits TV show, by the way, although it's possible that the title of this story influenced the choice of title for that TV show. Quite why they selected The Outer Limit or Graham Dorr for the opening episode has always been a bit of a mystery to me. It's not exactly a classic story, and Dorr isn't exactly a famous science fiction writer. Well, not today anyway. But from week 2 onwards, Dimension X began featuring some strong stories from some strong authors. Movie critic Leonard Maltin has written that Dimension X provided more consistently intelligent science fiction than Hollywood movies did. Among those writers adapted for the show are many who are still known to science fiction fans today: Jack Williamson, Kurt Vonnegut, Frederick Brown, Robert Bloch, Murray Leinster. And in week 8, airing on May 27th, 1950, Ray Bradbury.
Time is an interesting phenomenon. a ticking clock, the running sands of an hourglass. All these have captured the imagination of men. But time is more. It exists now, and then, and in the future. Suppose we are in the year 1950. Coexistent in time may be worlds we have never seen, the worlds of the past and of the future. The year was 1950. It was a spring night in Mexico, fiesta time. The fireworks shot up into the clear, dark sky, and a papier-mâché bull ran about the plaza chasing boys and laughing men.
To the Future had been published in Collier's magazine on May 13th, 1950, just 2 weeks before that broadcast. Many listeners may have recently read the story, or may still have their unfinished copy of Collier's waiting to be read. Today we know To the Future better by the author's preferred title, The Fox and the Forest. It's the one about people using time travel to escape from a future dystopian world. They end up in our present, in Mexico.
Where are we?
No, we're still in 1950. It's all right. You must have had a nightmare.
It was awful, Bill. Bill, there was an explosion, a terrible explosion, and my hand burned and wrinkled, and the buildings broke. Oh, Bill. Bill, we won't go back there, will we? Ever?
No. Go to sleep, honey. It's all right. We're in Mexico 1950, and we're going to stay here.
To the Future was dramatised for Dimension X by Ernest Kinoy, one of the show's regular writers. Kinoy had been in the US Army in World War II, was imprisoned by the Nazis, and after the war he went to college and became a writer, first for radio and later for TV and film. He had his greatest successes in TV, winning Emmy Awards for scripts for the shows The Defenders and Roots. Kinoy's name comes up again and again as we work through the Dimension X episodes. After To the Future, Dimension X did episodes based on stories by Donald Wollheim and Robert Heinlein, and then returned to Bradbury for a double episode based on There Will Come Soft Rains and 0 Hour, with an episode which aired on June the 17th, 1950.
Tonight we present two ventures into the unknown, two fantasies of the future, chosen from the works of one of our most brilliant young science fiction writers, Ray Bradbury. First, his story entitled There Will Come Soft Rains. The house was a good house, planned and built to be lived in the year 1980. The real estate agent had told them all about it.
Now, this is the bedroom. Of course, it contains all the latest devices, self-warming blankets, and there's a brand new feature. Beds, which make themselves. Now, if you'll just step this way through the library, we can see the latest in talking book recorders, self-building fireplace, self-cleaning robot dust disposal. Oh, these little mouse-like things come out of the wall and take away all the dirt.
There Will Come Soft Rains is a very short story, and so the decision was made to double it up with another story from the same author, 0 Hour. The dramatisation in this case was by George Lefferts, who was Dimension X's other regular writer. Like Kinoy, Lefferts had been in the army, in the intelligence corps. His career took in radio drama, theatre work, and TV. He also later picked up an Emmy, and he created a number of TV shows which are not particularly remembered today. There Will Come Soft Rains is the story from the Martian Chronicles, where we witness an automated house trying desperately to carry on as normal after a catastrophic nuclear war. It was another story which had first come to print in Collier's magazine about 6 weeks before this broadcast. It was also out there as a chapter in The Martian Chronicles, which was first published in May 1950 as a doubleday hardcover, just 1 month before this broadcast.
On the front porch, the dog whined and shivered. The front door recognized the dog's voice and opened. The dog padded in wearily, thin to the bone, covered with sores. It ran to the kitchen and pawed the kitchen door wildly. Behind the door, the stove was making pancakes which filled the house with their odor, as prescribed by the automatic preset menu selector. The dog frothed, ran insanely, spun in a circle, biting its tail, and died.
The Martian Chronicles was Ray's first book from a mainstream publisher, and it gained him a lot of attention. The triple whammy of having Soft Rains in a book, in a top-selling magazine, and in a peak-time radio show, all within the space of a few weeks, must have done wonders for Ray's visibility as a new author. Alongside the recently published Soft Rains was 0 Hour, which, in comparison, was something of an old classic. 0 Hour had been first published 3 years back in Planet Stories, and because it's both a science fiction tale and a horror story, it would turn up in all sorts of places over the years, with dramatisations not just here, but on the radio shows Suspense, which we looked at a few episodes ago, and Escape, and Lights Out, and in various TV adaptations.
How are things in New York?
Fine, Helen. How are things in Pittsburgh? You look tired.
Oh, I've been having a terrible time with the children.
Sick?
No, just underfoot. They've got a new game that's got me just about crazy. It's called Invasion.
Did you say invasion?
That's right.
Well, isn't that strange? My Mink is playing it, too.
My boy Tim is all involved with some imaginary fellow named Drill who's running the invasion.
Must be a new password. Mink likes him, too.
How do you suppose these games start? My backyard looks like a scrap drive. They've got every conceivable kind of mechanical gadget arranged out there.
This double Bradbury episode was the last of Ray's stories to be performed as live broadcasts on Dimension X, as the show shifted to recorded episodes shortly afterwards. But the shows were still recorded as live, which means they were recorded continuously, without stops, unless some severe mistake was made. A mere couple of weeks later, Ray was back again, with a dramatisation of Mars is Heaven.
Well, we're on Mars, April 20th, 1987. 4:33 Greenwich time. Enter that in the log, Masters.
Aye, sir.
Well, gentlemen, it's less than 2 hours till dawn.
Christmas together again. That'll be something, huh?
Yes, sirree. Well, this calls for a celebration. How about a little of the old dandelion wine, eh, Johnny?
Now, Father, don't you go giving Johnny too much wine.
Oh, he's a big boy now, Mother. Well, sir, isn't everything just fine? Just fine.
Now, in that clip, there's a little oddity. That reference to dandelion wine in this dramatisation of Mars is Heaven. I'm pretty sure that doesn't appear in the short story. And Ray's book, called Dandelion Wine, wouldn't appear for another 7 years, although a number of the Dandelion Wine stories had cropped up in magazines over the years. But does this mean that scriptwriter Ernest Kinoy was making a connection between this short story and some other Bradbury story he'd seen? It seems unlikely, and it makes me wonder if maybe Ray had submitted a script or an outline of his own to the producers of Dimension X. It's a bit of a mystery, that one. Mars is Heaven is, of course, another story from the Martian Chronicles, although in that book the story is simply titled The Third Expedition. The original short story appeared first in a 1948 issue of Planet Stories, and it went on to become one of Ray's most reprinted stories. And it was selected for the well-regarded Robert Silverberg anthology, The Science Fiction Hall of Fame, This was a book with contents voted on by professional science fiction writers, the members of the Science Fiction Writers of America. Oh, and Stephen King said that this radio production scared him to death when he was a child. And just a reminder, we're still in the year 1950. Ray is 29 years old, The Martian Chronicles has just been published, and already 2 stories from that book have been dramatised by Dimension X on peak time radio. And then, just 6 weeks later, the whole book gets dramatised as an episode of Dimension X. Wait, what? The whole book? In just a 30-minute episode? Yes. Heavily condensed. The Martian Chronicles aired as a 30-minuter on August the 18th, 1950.
Tonight, Dimension X presents The Martian Chronicles, a dramatization of the new novel by one of our most brilliant young science fiction writers, Ray Bradbury. The Martian Chronicles. January in the year 1999. 1 minute it was Ohio winter with doors closed, the panes blind with frost, icicles fringing every roof, children skiing on snowy slopes. And then a long wave of warmth crossed the small town, a flooding sea of hot air.
Ernest Kinoy was very busy that year. Most of these Bradbury episodes were dramatised by him, and he was responsible for that heavily condensed Martian Chronicles. According to an interview that he gave with the TV Academy, it would typically take him a week to write a half-hour radio drama. 6 weeks later again, on September 29th, 1950, yet another Martian Chronicles story was aired, this time, And the Moon Be Still as Bright. The story of Spender, the conscientious Earthman who does his utmost to prevent the destruction of what remains of the culture of the now extinct Martians. Oh, sorry, spoilers.
Hi, Spender. Long time no see.
Hello, Cherokee. I've been exploring some ruins.
You and them ruins. You're like a dog in a boneyard. What's the matter? Where you been?
Up in the hills. What would you say if I told you I found a Martian?
Huh? Where?
Yeah. Never mind. Let me ask you a question. How would you feel if you were a Martian and people came to your land and started to tear it up?
I know how I'd feel. I've got Cherokee blood in me. My grandfather told me lots of things about the way they kicked the Indians around in the Oklahoma Territory. If there's any Martian around, I'm all for him.
The first season of Dimension X ran from April 1950 through to January 1951, with no less than 5 episodes drawn from Bradbury stories, nearly all of them taken from the Martian Chronicles. Then came Season 2, starting in June 1951. And 6 weeks in, on July 19th, 1951, there was another Bradbury, Dwellers in Silence. That's possibly a less familiar title, the title used for the first magazine appearance of the story in Maclean's magazine back in 1948. But it's better known as another Martian Chronicles piece. In the book, the story is retitled The Long Years. This one has a scientist on Mars who, spoiler alert, tries to overcome his loneliness by creating android replicas of his deceased family. This one was scripted by George Lefferts.
But the loneliness of those first years...
At least you had your wife and children.
Yes. Yes, I had my family. If it were not for them, gentlemen, I assure you I would long ago have put a bullet in my head.
Here we are. Champagne, Captain.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Hathaway. May I propose a toast?
Oh, let me. Gentlemen, to Earth.
To Earth.
Earth. May she never be a stranger to man again.
Hathaway, what is it?
Nothing really. It's just a rather sharp pain in the chest.
I think you should lie down, Doctor.
Yes.
Perhaps you're right.
Let me help you.
No. John and Susan will help.
Of course, Father.
Why don't you gentlemen go out on the porch, enjoy the air?
At this point, Dimension X leaves the Martian Chronicles behind, although the show wasn't done with Bradbury. Every few weeks through to the end of the series, Ray's stories would appear. In this final stretch came dramatizations of stories from Ray's next book, The Illustrated Man. The stories chosen were The Veldt, Marionettes Inc., and Kaleidoscope.
Dr. McLean is coming in a half hour to help us out. Lydia, turn on the nursery.
Now remember, kids, it'll be just for 1 minute. Oh, boy! Come on, Wendy, come on! Thanks, Daddy, thanks a lot!
Just 1 minute, remember.
Come on. Down the steps. That's it.
It's very damp down here, Mr. Brayling.
Bad plumbing. Well, here we are.
Brayling,
Yes.
before you put me back into the toolbox, could we have a word?
Certainly, old man.
This toolbox.
What about it?
Well, I don't like it, Mr. Brayling.
Why not?
It's cramped.
Oh. Well, I'll try to fix up something more comfortable when I get back from Rio. All right, now, before Glory gets worried, back to
Marionettes are made to move, not to keep still. How would you like to lie in a stuffy old box most of the time?
I didn't realize you fellas were that sensitive.
Well, you wouldn't like it at all.
I'm headed for the sun. Somehow I don't like the idea of falling into the sun. I'm going to take a quicker way out. No, Stone, don't be a fool. I'm going to smash the faceplate on my helmet and let the oxygen escape.
Stone, don't do it. We're going to be rescued. Stone.
See you all in some other universe. God have mercy.
By the way, that second and final season of Dimension X continued featuring stories by other leading science fiction writers of the day, including Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein. But the second season was short, running from June to September, and then it was gone. I doubt that anyone connected to the show ever thought that those episodes would survive, but they did. Right through to the end of the 20th century, you could still hear Dimension X episodes on broadcast radio somewhere in the world, and on home media, first cassette tapes, later CD. And nowadays, of course, you can find them all over the internet, probably because the show is widely considered to now be in the public domain. However, most of the stories featured on Dimension X are still in copyright, and will remain so until the original authors have been dead for 70 years. So the true copyright status of Dimension X, I think, is less clear than people think. After a 4-year gap, a new science fiction radio show appeared on NBC Radio, X-1. Clearly a revival of Dimension X. Not only did this new show continue the approach of Dimension X in producing 30-minute dramatizations of science fiction stories from magazines and books, they even reused the scripts. X-1 ran more or less continuously from April 1955 to January 1958 for a total of 126 episodes, more than doubling the production run of Dimension X, although some of those 126 episodes were repeats.
From the far horizons of the unknown come transcribed tales of new dimensions in time and space. These are stories of the future, adventures in which you'll live in 1,000,000 could-be years on 1,000 maybe worlds. The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with Street and Smith, publishers of astounding science fiction, presents
X minus 1.
Although X-1 eventually moved away from reusing old scripts and dramatised a lot of new stories, the only Bradbury episodes were re-performances of previous Dimension X's. As a comparison, here's a section from And the Moon Be Still as Bright. First you'll hear Dimension X's production, and then, mid-scene, I'll switch to X-1's production. See if you can spot the difference.
Through the house played the strange wind music of ancient Mars, and he heard voices whisper in his mind.
I hear you. I've always heard you, even down there on Earth. I won't run. What's the use?
Live, Earthman. Live.
Live? What for? To see them tear down your temples and put up hot dog stands?
Run.
They've seen me now. They know I'm up here.
Live.
I would estimate that maybe a few million people must have heard these Dimension X's and X-1s over the years, and the large number of Bradbury stories included must therefore have significantly broadened Ray's audience. The fact that the same scripts were performed more than once, with X-1 reusing old scripts from Dimension X and occasionally running repeats of its own recordings, all of that sounds like a bad thing. But actually, this helped these stories become standards. Bradbury probably would have been a successful author without these shows, no question. But I would argue that this is a writer born of the media age, whose early successes are intimately tied to media productions. And of course, Ray was a writer who embraced radio and film and television as exciting outlets for his creative works, as well as a healthy second income stream. With the same Bradbury stories being reprinted many times over the years in different magazines, anthologies, story collections, this all helped to build the Bradbury universe, so that eventually one day his brand, for want of a better term, would become sufficiently familiar that he could sustain his own radio and TV shows, such as radio's Bradbury 13 and Tales of the Bizarre, and TV's Martian Chronicles and Ray Bradbury Theatre. I hope you've enjoyed this little sampling of Ray's stories on Dimension X and X-1. Most of these old shows are well worth a listen if you haven't already tried them. So I'll put links to all of the complete episodes in the show notes, which you'll be able to find in the usual place, bradburymedia.co.uk. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Bradbury 100. Bradbury 100 is presented and produced by Phil Nichols, and theme music is by Purple Planet at purpleplanet.com. You can find the show notes and much more on Bradbury at bradburymedia.co.uk. And please check out my other podcast, Science Fiction 101, where we discuss the past, present and future of science fiction. You'll find it wherever good pods are given away.